No. My friend's dad used to tell his kids that when they played the music, it meant they'd run out of ice cream.
I might borrow that.
Bad parenting, that. Cool. You can give it a couple of minutes, see who arrives. How many we got? Just turn that floating concrete.
Oh, we need to have a chat. Floating concrete.
Cool. We'll start in a second. There's quite a few people watching it. Shy people who don't want to be on Zoom, and I can understand that everyone's a bit zoomed out, but people watch it live. So, right, I think we're ready. Let's go. Okay, everyone, welcome to Grow at Home Artist Talks, a series where we hear from artists, authors, and musicians about their work and practice. Grow at Home was made possible by the Arts Council England Cultural Recovery Fund. We will be live streaming and recording tonight, and this will be archived on our website. We also sometimes screen grabs for publicity purposes. So please be aware that if you're not comfortable with being recorded, you need to switch off your webcam. There will be a question and answer section at the end of the talk. Please put any questions and comments you have in the chat, and they'll be fielded to the artist at the end by me. So without further ado, Junior Phipps is a self-confessed concrete nerd, a neo-brutalist who is passionate about crafting beautiful surfaces, furniture and sculptural objects out of polished concrete. Junior's company, Conscious Forms, creates design-conscious functional concrete of an architectural nature. Conscious Forms are best known for casting concrete in situ, which enables them to create large, seamless concrete surfaces to any shape or form. The versatility and aesthetics of concrete makes it the perfect material for creating bespoke design statements in the home, commercial, or public spaces. The Studio Workshop undertake commissions to produce small batches of bespoke and limited edition sculptural furniture. Conscious Forms have produced award-winning ranges of lighting, loudspeakers, furniture, and products that celebrates concrete and form. Junior Phipps, over to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's very kind of you. Nice words. Yes, where do I start? My love for concrete. I studied furniture and product design at Bucks College many years ago. And I took that onto master's level, and I did a master's degree in furniture and product design, which sort of introduced me into the design game and sort of set me off as a young designer maker, interested in finding his way in the world, in the design world. A project came along when I was sharing a workshop in Peckham with a colleague of mine, Robin Brinkworth. And the project was for a piece of furniture for a pub. And we cast this piece of furniture, and it was absolutely beautiful. We cast it off of acrylic perspex, and it was just already polished as soon as it was released from the mold. Unfortunately, it's the one thing I don't have any photographs of, but that's what kind of got me into working with concrete, in that you could do these amazing things with this synthetic stone, or sorry, natural material, but just stone, and being able to create stone from creating your own molds, and it was just a wonderful thing for me. It was a revelation moment. The workshop we were in at the time was very, very small, and we didn't have much space to work, let alone store products that we were creating. So my very first product was the concrete light cube, which you can see here in the first image. This is 8 centimeters cubed. If I just skip over my love for this lovely material into the range. So the concrete light cubed, as in the light 3 cubed, tried to get a bit clever with the mathematical name, was all about it being user-friendly, having the user interact with the product and be able to kind of have some kind of say in how the product was used. As you can see here, in the red cube is slightly angled, pointing up, yellow on its flat to the side, and the blue on its base pointing upwards. So you had a number of different avenues to use this. You could cross light, you could uplight artwork, you could uplight plants and have beautiful shadows along the ceiling, but it was more about the ambient lighting and about lighting effects, but also wanted to have a sculptural product that allowed you know, it to sing by itself when there was no light coming from the product. So I produced a range of colors. Color is just such a personal thing. So we started off with the full range, but people are scared of color, and we ended up going back to selling the black and white ones because those were the best sellers. But it was the product that got picked up by the Apprentice series, and it was the apprentices had to go out and sell as many of these lighting products as possible. So they went around and found loads of retailers for me, and quite literally sold loads of my lighting products to the retailers, and they just handed me over the contract at the end to fulfill these orders. So this was because I was at the 100% Design exhibiting, you know, reporters came and found me and chose the product. So out of 40 designers, 20 products were chosen, and this was one of them. So this was heavily featured. They won the task with my product, and then handed me over lots of retailers to sell this to. So that, which was fantastic, because it was at a stage of my career when I was looking for retailers to sell my product to. The one thing with this product was that I could not find anybody to manufacture it for me to the quality and the standard that I wanted. So lo and behold, do it yourself. You learn, you kind of create things to help you along the way. I mean, one thing that I didn't have was a vibrating table, so I went down to Brick Lane Market and I bought 2 jigsaws, brand spanking new, in their box for £10 each, which shows you the quality of them. They're pretty naff, but they didn't matter. I wasn't using them for jigsaws. I just wanted the vibration from them. So I then went down to the local mechanics and got some piston springs, a couple of little ones, mounted them on a piece of board, and mounted and put the 2 jigsaws at the end. Then all of a sudden, switch them on, screw them down, switch them on, you've got a vibrating table. So then I used the vibrating table to get all the air out of my products. And then this was something that just followed me throughout all of the products that I was casting. So another product I was working on at the time was these decorative wall panels. They're called in-out decorative wall panels because they got innies and they got outies. So I just wanted to say what I saw. And these decorative panels were going for like a feature wall, or you could just have a few of them as an art piece in themselves. But the idea was that they played with a little bit of visual illusion. Are they in? Are they out? You know, the light shining on them creates quite strong visual effects. And that was something that I was quite interested in, playing with people's perceptions with the designs. So these were the molds. Oh, look, I've got a picture of the vibrating table. There's me 2 jigsaws, brand new in the box. And this is the mold that we created to cast the in-out decorative wall panels. So we used white snowcrete concrete to do this. Here's a range of them together in a show, so they're slightly yellow lighting. So as a young designer, just fresh out of uni, trying to make my stamp on the world. So joining collectives like Hidden Art, who no longer exist, and God bless her, Danica passed away earlier this year. She was running Hidden Art, but she supported so many young designer makers coming out of uni who had no real direction where to go, and organize shows like this one here, which was in Milan, where we took our products out to the Milan Furniture Fair to drum up some trade, and you know, we were supported by the DTI, Department for Trade and Industry, who helped support the whole you know, exhibition costs. So this is you know, our first step in putting our head into the design world. And I was commissioned to design a bathroom piece based on the in-out range. And I wanted it to relate to the bathroom a bit more. So I kind of found this found material, which is where I got the initial in-out from. It was just a tanking material used in the building trade, but it was giving such a wonderful impression or embossed surface when you cast off of it. I thought, what a wonderful thing. And the randomness about just splodging a load of concrete onto this tanking material and vibrating it on my vibrating table and letting, you know, gravity and randomness and chaos just do its thing to produce this piece. And it was just something really lovely, the way it sort of finished and waffled out around the edges. And so then the range carried on. I found a smaller version of the tanking material in a skip, pulled it out, started cutting it up and folding it and using sticky tape and producing these little innie, outie, or out tea light candle holders. So yeah, a little bit humor in what I do, if you haven't worked that out yet. But these, I was living in a high-rise block at the time, so these were quite poignant for me, you know, all of these sort of high-rise and low-rise Hackney living, you know, and I was just sort of, you know, my life was coming out in my concrete work. So we produced a whole sort of range of these 3 different sizes. And then we created some storage units using the same technique and the way they sort of join together like Lego, depending on how you sort of, you cast them. CD holders, thing of the past. Huh? And now, so we have splat clock. So, you know, from the bathroom panel that I designed, I thought, wow, we've got to do a smaller version of this. How can I use this in more of a product-based form? Yeah, so I created a splat, and then I sort of just extruded it a bit and just sort of manufactured it so that it didn't sort of, you know, crack around the edges, because it gets quite thin as it spreads across the mold. So then I started selling the range of splat clocks, tea light candle holders, and numerous other products. This was the vintage footage, so it does look a little bit pixelated, from the East London Design Show, with a few press clips. He was in the newspapers, he was in the press, he was in The Voice, he was all over the place. He was selling his concrete bits and pieces. So here we are with them pixelated at the East London Design Show, young designer pimping his wares. So we developed another product, sort of living in Hackney, all the bicycles cycling around. We got to get some inspiration from the old bikes, haven't we, from somewhere? So here we are, we produced a load of molds, and this was more about me being efficient with my mix. Always have to cast too much when you mix up concrete, because not enough is a problem. So too much, well, what do I do with the mix afterwards? So then I produced all of these little molds that I can put my mix into and actually sell products based on the waste materials. And this was one of them, the hex nut. But it was just lovely the way they tessellated together. And again, started playing around with basic colors, because I'm aware that people are scared of color and use of color. So I thought red, blood, black, oil, white, milk. And then that was it. That was the range of colors I was going to go with. This was back in 2007. But they just work well together, and they tessellate together, and you can just create your own different arrangements. Again, this is adding the element of the user being able to use them in how they want to use them. You know, just not one prescribed way of using the product. And here you are, can stack them up, have them tall, have them short. It's also commissioned by Sam Salmon's jewelry display commission for Sam to display her beautiful jewelry on. And this was also for the East London Design Show, which I was exhibiting at, and the curator contacted me saying, well, look, Sam needs some bits to display her work on. You're the guy. So, and the jewelry just works really well against the stone. So that was just a little side commission. So we designed the little sort of earring holders, little T-bar earring holders and ring holders, and places just to display their lovely jewelry. And here they are in the workshop. alongside a couple of light cubes in the casting in the background. So after designing the light cube, the indoor light cube, so many people, oh, concrete light, fantastic, brilliant. Does it go outside? No, this one doesn't, but the next one will. That was always the answer to that, just so that I'm keeping people interested in what I'm doing and that they can watch my space. So I designed the waterproof light ball, which has got a 20,000 hour light fitting in it, which kind of equates to about, I don't know, 10 to 15 years worth of use. And it was just really, really nice to have that longevity within the product, because the concrete's got the longevity. I wanted the light fitting to also have longevity. I didn't want it to be a throwaway product. None of my products are throwaway. They're about long lifespan and durability. And that's where I think my element of sustainability in concrete works, because it's for a long time and you would have chucked away about 5 lights by then. So these can be positioned on their nodules in even more positions than the light cube had. So the light cube had 3, and this one's probably got about 7 or 8 different positions you can position them on, so long as they're standing on 3 of the little nodules. And here they are, quite lovely colours. And this was the batch that was producing for the Hayward Gallery shop to complement their brutalist architecture. So developed another product called the Mini Orb Light, which came out off the back of another 2 products that I'm about to talk about. This Mini Orb Light was also featured on the TV on Kirsty's Vintage Homes, where I was producing some of these lights for the clients who were doing a makeover on their home. But these are probably about so big, about 120 millimeters round. They have flat surfaces, again, for the position of the lighting. The product just looks so simple, but designing this product was quite a thing. I.e., like, you know, you've got just a sphere and they've got flats on, and each flat's got a related angle. So you spin it around and you go, okay, that's that flat, and that lights up that way. And then you get distracted and you come back and you go, right, well, which flat was I working on? Because it's just a ball and it's got 5 flats. So I spent ages just spinning this thing around to try and work out the angles. But eventually I did, and I got some quite interesting angles to uplight with. But I just love the way that it's got all of its pock marks, and, you know, this is pigmented with black pigment. And so the original products these came from were the Orb Light and the Orb Acoustic, which were a huge, big, sort of 400 mil big, heavyweight lighting, outdoor sculptural lighting for lighting architectural details, features, pathways. And these were at the House and Garden show exhibited back in 2007. Initially, I made excuse me while I scroll along, I made a mold, and out of this mold, we produced the light. And the idea was that we were going to sell the light as part of the ISOS collection, which was a collection of contemporary furniture pieces. But previously I'd done some work with a speaker design company, and I'd helped produce a speaker for another brand. And I had all of that knowledge still in my head, and I was thinking, oh wow, this is a fantastic cavity. This could be used as a speaker also. So I sneakily went back to the manufacturers, got them to produce some samples, castings. And I said, look, I've got a way of potentially selling more of the same product out of one mold. So we designed a speaker from that mold with some small amendments to the mold. And then you can get an idea of scale of the lights now. So again, these are the positions that the lights are lighting in. So then off the back of sort of all of the collective design shows I was doing with lots of designers, it was time to step out and kind of, you know, put the focus more on me as opposed to the group. So I teamed up with another colleague, Ryan Frank, who was producing these screens and upcycled bits of furniture. And these are the speakers that I was talking about, designed by Sam Godden, that I worked on previously. So we're just taking that technology into the Orb speaker. So it was nice. The range was coming together. Lighting and acoustics work quite well together. So there's a few close-ups of the Orb speakers. So they are made from black pigmented concrete with black marble chippings with the odd sort of white fleck in there, 3 to 8 millimeter. And this is the porthole at the back, where we can get the extra bass extension, because it's all about the bass, and some perforated stainless steel that I found a local metal spinner to spin for me, that slots and caps in and seals the speaker. Now, these can be used outdoors and indoors. We have outdoor speakers that can be played under snow, rain, you know, extreme temperatures. They just don't perish. Here they are in the White Rabbit in Dalston on display. Just to give you a sense of scale, here's the dude himself with his 2 speakers either side at the Dulwich Open House Artist Fair. So yeah, I just wanted to experiment a bit more with concrete, and obviously most of my work is very sort of geometric. It's you know, the circles, the cubes, very basic forms. And again, I wanted to introduce a bit more sort of texture and tactility and mysticism into the concrete. So I found a technique where somebody was actually filling balloons with concrete, and then you know, using those as a pathway. And I thought, well, that's a really lovely idea. How can I use balloons and concrete in a very creative way? So I thought, well, let's just try making a mold, and let's see what I can produce. So I made this, knocked up this mold haphazardly together in about 10 minutes, and then, you know, just started adding the metal structural elements inside. I just filled these balloons up with air just to kind of gauge it, to see exactly what's going to be happening in there. And I thought, right, let's just go for it. And I started filling the balloons with concrete. So first of all, I had to get the air compressor out in this very, very serious workshop. This is very, very serious work. Balloons, yeah, in a workshop. Blow them up, stretch them a bit, and then sort of fill them with concrete. You've got a funnel and a stick and lots of this kind of shoving action just to get it in there, and the balloons falling off, and it's a bit of a thing. It's a bit of a mess, but hey, I'm having fun. I'm playing in mud in a workshop and in my own space. I'm living good. It's fine. So here they are, going off bit by bit, and every now and again a balloon would burst. What do? You hose it down, your concrete's going off, so it gets a bit frantic, but you know, I'm cool, I'm in control. And then once you take it out of the mold and you're left with the balloons in the concrete, it looks quite sci-fi. And then you sort of, you know, take the balloons off and peel them back, and expose the beautiful, tactile, soft-looking concrete pebbles. And again, I'm that man on the beach, picking up the pebbles, picking up the stones, you know, touching them, looking at them, stroking them, rubbing them on my face. You know, I just love stones, pebbles. You know, they're just such beautiful, natural, organic things. And I wanted to bring some of that into my work. And here it is at the East London Design Show again, exhibited next to one of the Orb speakers. So that was the basic experiment, the stool, and I wanted to try and take that into a considered piece of furniture. So I made myself a mold. I got a piece of got some wood, got it turned into the shape of the table, took a mold from the table, a 3-piece mold from the table, to produce. I think you can just about see the top of the mold here, the 3 pieces. So to help produce this table. So here you go. This is the technique up here. There's your stick. You fill up this tube with concrete. There's your stick. You put the balloon on the end, and then you end up ramming that stick in the tube just to get it into the balloon. Really, lots of no. It's really fun. It's really fun. It's not time consuming. he says. But like, yeah, I mean, look at this little nest of eggs here, of concrete eggs, all ready to be squished down with the lid. And, you know, there's a certain amount of pressure in here. It's there's only a certain amount of concrete can fit into the space and squish and get the bolts on and have it, you know, one balloon too many. So I was taking them out, putting them in. Is that a bigger one, a smaller one, just to get the balance of getting the right amount within the mold. But what a beautiful thing I created here, if I don't mind saying so myself. It's just, you know, pomegranate, you know, springs to mind right now, you know. It's just amazing. The way they all nest and influence each other. Every single shape and form influences its neighbor, you know, and that's something really beautiful about this, you know, the fact that all of them are influencing each other. So I did various tables, but the byproducts that come off of this casting process is absolutely amazing. These two, this is just dust on the mold, on the upside down in the mold, where I've taken the top off after I've squashed those balloons down. And this is the imprint from the concrete dust. I had to just leave these up for a little while in the workshop before I could actually wipe it off, because I was just like so in love with the actual images and the imprints, the byproducts, the art that was being produced as a byproduct of the art. I just thought there was something wonderful about that. So here we are, a different set of balloons, a different day, a different mix of colors, you know, so I've started mixing concrete colors together, you know, so a bit of dark gray, a bit of light gray. And as you can see, there's a hole here. This is the fella here that I call King Linking Stone. And because he links the top to the shaft of the table. And if King Linking Stone is not got air bubbles in the, you know, if it's got air bubbles in incorrect places, then it's not linking. So I cast about 3 of these King Linking Stones because the original one just wanted to be a piece of art by itself. So as you look through some of the designs, you'll start to see, was this a good King Linking Stone? I think this was a good King Linking Stone. And here I am just in the workshop. Time to take the balloons off. You can see the mold in the background, two parts of it. And my little baby mixer, which I was using to mix up the mix. But it's just quite therapeutic, peeling balloons off. I mean, you know, second to mushroom peeling. I mean, this is like, you know, this is up there, like. So it's quite a process. You know, you got to be very considered where you pick them up from, where you put them down from, because if you mix them up, you certainly find out how good at 3D puzzles you are. And here's the man himself, King Linking Stone. You see there's 2 King Linking Stones there. So actually this is a replacement because the original one was supposed to be black and gray. So this is a slightly burgundy color. So that was an offending King Linking Stone. Okay. Oh, there we go. So this is the mold. This is the outside of the mold. And these are just some of the lovely details, close-ups of the table. And this is where I'm starting to mix the heavily black pigmented with just standard gray, shoving it in the balloon and just letting the balloon create the mixture. So here we have the top side of that one I was just peeling back, which shows you the replacement King Linking Stone. And inside the upside down shaft, I put some foam knockouts inside. Knockouts are things that I put in to take out to create a cavity, to lose some of the weight within the table, because these are about 30 kgs each. Yeah, I love this image. This one really works for me. Just all of them squished together, doing their thing, tactile. You just want to touch it. You just want to stroke it. Well, I do anyway. Sorry, I'm just nerding out here by myself again. Just excuse me. But yeah, it's quite a thing. I think it's just so beautiful that you can get these really organic, natural forms all created by influences by their neighbours. And I think there's just something really lovely and sensual about these curves and details. And there's the range or part of the range. And what's really nice about this mold is that I'm really using this mold to on my journey as a designer and casting things as I go along, because now this has become the hex nut tea light candle holder on a larger scale, i.e. that all my waste goes into this mold and I can create new products along the way. So going back, the wooden one in the background is the actual turned piece of wood which I took the mold from in the first place. So that's why there's a timber one in there. So this was one of the tables which yeah, I guess this was produced from the waste from a project. And again, the only decision I had in this was the order that the colors went in. And pigments are really expensive for concrete. So just to actually chuck a whole load of pigmented concrete into the bin, I had problems with. So yeah, it was good to use it and recycle it, upcycle it in this way. So polished concrete surfaces, this is kind of the bread and butter money for me. I love the creative element. That's what drives me the most. But the bread and butter, concrete surfaces, structures, architectural details, you know, all out of concrete. If you can visualize what you want within your home, then generally I can sort of put it together and make it for you. It's a completely bespoke surface. You can choose your colors. You can choose, I mean, so take for instance, the top here, we've got 10%. Pigment, 5%, 2%, standard grey, straight out the bag, and then an antique white. But then you can start adding pigments and colours to all of that, and just, you know, it's endless. It's endless. You can get pastel colours like this. You can get richer block colours. I mean, there's so many different pigments out there that you can use. You have to slightly tilt your head on this one. Yeah, but this is just some of the colours. Again, then you can start grinding them back and exposing the different aggregates. Some are sort of partially ground, semi-ground. This one's actually got a groove ground out of it because we can actually do drainage grooves in worktops, and pigmented pink. But generally, there's much more life in what I create because I'm casting in situ, so I'm casting my mold upwards. Precast, the mold, sorry, I cast upwards, and the top of my surface, I hand trowel to a burnished finish, i.e. there's lots of patina and pattern. Precast, you cast in a mold that way up, and then you flip it out that way, and then the top is the precast, and it's much more machined, it's much more uniform. It's probably a bit more like this one here. So if you compare that one to something like this one, which has got a lot more life within it, these here, and that's the difference between precast and cast in situ. It's much more of a machined look. So this is our very, very first concrete worktop that we did, and what a beast it was to start casting concrete worktops with. This is in St. Raphael's Hospice in Cheam, which used to be part of St. Anthony's Hospice, but then the hospice, St. Anthony's Hospice and Hospital and St. Raphael's Hospice had some sort of falling out. So they had to part the land and then part their cafes, which kind of brought me into a job where they needed a new worktop for a new build in their orangery cafe. So with the formwork, we build the timber work, and then we tank it with plastic, and then we sort of silicone and make sure no moisture can come out. And then we add rebar to stop the concrete from shrinking, because concrete just wants to shrink and crack, but the rebar, it sticks to the concrete and then it doesn't shrink. And this is the mud going in, the concrete mix or wet. As you can see along the corners, we know that these are stressed areas because the concrete wants to clamp itself around the corner. So we put some diagonals across to counteract the stressed areas. And this is the team, yeah. There's just a lot of hanging around, waiting for concrete to go off. Yeah, I mean, Junior, can we go? No, we can't leave site. Sorry, we got to stay here and watch it go off. Because if we leave and come back and it's gone, then we're missing our chance to trowel it. Because before we leave and walk away, you can see a mirror face, your face in the concrete. By the time we finish troweling it, it's burnished to a glass polished finish. If that's the finish you want. Some people want it a bit more matte. Here's some of the concrete details, that sort of rounded corner that we were casting in earlier. And we call these upstands. So we've got the rounded corner here and the upstands, the waterfall ends, give it many different names, but there's something really lovely the way it kind of comes up from the ground across the top and then meets the ground again. And this side, we even had a double waterfall end. So I cast this beautiful concrete cementitious worktop, and at this meeting with the facilities manager and the architect and the contractors, the main contractors, they all decided they wanted it exposed. I was like, but it's so beautiful. Why would you want to do that? But then I exposed it and I was like, oh, wow, that's quite nice, actually. So this is some of the details of the exposed aggregate. So with the concrete, that's the more cementitious finish. Semi-ground, heavily ground, another sort of heavily ground with granite and just standard grey. And then we've got board marked concrete also, so you can get the texture from the timber. And this one's sort of in between partial heavy ground. Again, you can also then start adding different coloured aggregates in. So we've got lots of recycled glass in these and marble. There's a waste stream for baby blue glass. Who would have thought it? But hey, I thought, let's have a go. So it worked quite well. This client, I produced all of these samples for. If you notice, they've all got the blue flecks in them because they had some blue lino and blue elements to their interiors that they wanted to highlight. So this is the first. Let's go back to that one. So we're using a waste stream. We're using recycled glass chips. I think that's 8 to 10, crystal clear, 8 to 10 millimeters, 8 to 10 millimeter white marble, and 20 millimeter. Oh, sorry, that's the 20 millimeter glass, and then sort of smaller 10 millimeter glass. And that sort of sizes, they sort of work quite well together. So then we started deciding which ones go together and which of these samples. So the sample page that you saw previously was all of these, which are the mix designs for those. So in the mixer they go. Just to give them a random mix. So this is on this side here. We just have the mix going in. You can start to see some of the blue chips coming through the white Portland cement. And then we vibe it with the vibrating poker to release the air bubbles. Yeah, that's a little bit of therapy that I have on my daily pour, watching the bubbles burst. Not too much therapy. Oh, too much therapy. Right, here we go. So this is it all troweled now. So because this one is going to be heavily ground, we don't have to go through all of the effort of creating a troweled mirror finish because we're only just going to grind it back anyway. So we could walk away from this one fairly early. And then the grinding process kicks in. We decided to wet grind this particular worktop simply because it was lots of glass and we'd be chucking lots of silica dust in the air, which is a health and safety no-no. So we ground it. But then when you grind it back, look at the beautiful aggregates just starting to show through in the waterfall ends. And in this sort of sample image here, you can really start to see the depth within the clear crystal glass. And of course, we put our maker's mark in everything we do because it's not just any old concrete. This is a conscious forms piece of concrete. So here we go. So, I mean, the worktops just sort of started to take off. And yeah, this was next to the White Cube in Bermondsey. yeah, funky shaped worktops for funky shaped spaces. So, you know, no shape we cannot create. And this one's got the sloping drainer cutouts for hobs and sinks, tap holes. So again, more worktops, the waterfall end panels and the structure you need to counteract this from bellying and bowing from the hydrostatic pressure from the concrete. We've got a sort of overhang over here, so we're reinforcing that overhang with extra steel. And this is it. I think we went for a 5% black with an exposed aggregate. And this is the first time we ground our drainage grooves. And they're just lines, but wow, aren't they beautiful lines? They're just lines, just grooves, that's all. That's it. Just runs water off, but you know, when you live with things that are beautiful, you don't want to throw them away. You don't want to, you know, it's just about living with beautiful things to keep things in your house for longer periods of time and not just chucking things away like the current society we're living in. So again, my maker's mark. And then we're starting to get a bit more creative. We're starting to cast in situ sinks. So we're starting to use stainless steel mesh, creating little shopping baskets to go in. And normally, as I said, I normally cast in situ, but here I'm actually in the workshop. There was timing issues with this job, so bad that I decided that because it was a mono block casting, that it could be done in the workshop. So I made everything flat pack, took it apart, and then took it to site and installed it on site. And we poured the concrete. So we've got a sloping drainer and in situ sink. Here we have it struck and polished. So it's actually freestanding unit, 3-sided waterfall ends. But this is like an amazing cooking, washing up station. You cannot enter this property without stroking this piece of concrete. And I've watched people, I've just stood there and watched people come in and out and just counted the strokes. But yeah, I mean, it's concrete. You wouldn't imagine that people will be doing this with this material. There's another with the waterfall end in the middle, at the end and on the top, with the scooped cast in situ backsplash, which is become quite popular now, the way it just scoops up the wall up here and on both ends. So you've got this really lovely kind of radius edge in here that, yeah, it's just more hygienic and clean for a kitchen environment, I think. So this was my best client in 2019, because she not only commissioned me to do a concrete worktop, she commissioned me to do a board marked concrete wall in the kitchen as well to accompany the worktop. And in fact, the wall came first and then the worktop came after. But we used Douglas fir, as I used to go to a lot of sort of concrete lectures at the building centre, and they had concrete elegance lectures where they discussed concrete and the best ways of creating. Board mark concrete was with Douglas fir because the rough sawn Douglas fir grain really lends itself to the casting. So this is the wall. With hindsight, they should have just cast the wall with concrete, but the wall was built with breeze blocks. Who am I to complain? It's a job. So I had to produce some formwork in the studio to clad this wall to give it the board marked concrete. So I did a little sample first to get it all signed off. We're using this new Dewey DAG system, which is just a wall tie system where you can use a rod to tie the actual concrete to the wall, and it gives you a specific spacing amount. So this was 60 millimeters. And this was the sample we produced to get signed off. The client loved it. Client's got a property in Morocco, and they are amazing with tadlact and concrete work out there. And she showed me that work, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I was just really scared to produce a piece of work for her because she's already knowledgeable of concrete, and it just like everything in her house was really beautiful. But then she said, I want this one really messed up. I want it rough. I don't want it look, you see this? This is too nice. And I was just like, you're my kind of client. You get this material. You understand it. So I produced these massive panels in the workshop to transport to site to fit with the Dewey DAG system sticking out the wall. to bolt it to the wall, but then we found out that the wall was made out of biscuit, so we couldn't really bolt it to the wall and let it sort of be self-supporting. So we had to get creative with how we supported it from the other side. And I was initially going to cast this all in one pour, the whole wall in one pour. But then somebody said to me, "You're not going to do that in one go, are you?" And I was like, oh, I got the willies. I got a bit scared. So I was like, should I cast it in one go? The wall's made out of biscuit, the hydrostatic pressure with the concrete going down, it could just kick in the wall at the bottom, and then I'll just be filling in a cavity and I wouldn't even know about it. So I decided to do it in 2 pours. So this was the first pour. So we did half the amount. We had 2 mixers going side by side, back to back, pre-weighed out mixed on the floor, ready to go. Created a little slopey, rampy thing to slopey ramp the concrete down into the wall. All the rebar in place, ready to go. And we're just bringing it up to level. And there's the team. So we had to think of ways of just supporting this. So it looks a little bit extreme, but this is this is mini architecture here. So then we had to split the top panel here in half, because obviously getting all of that concrete down to these 2 panels through this tiny gap up here would have been an issue. So we left this one off, poured it up to this level, and then fitted that last panel in, and then poured the rest. And this is the formwork coming away, which left a board marked concrete wall with the Dewey Dag system holes still in place, all measured out so that they can actually also become a design feature when they're filled and plugged. After this project, we went on to produce a war memorial for Mark Bryant. He runs the 3D print shop in Bristol. He bid for this project and won the bid, and then he approached me saying, "Look, I really want to do some work with you. I love your work. I've got this design. Can you help me realize it? We've got these glass poppies being made by a glass artist. Mark Bryant was going to 3D print up all of the molds, and then these elements were going to be made by a brass maker with all of the names of the fallen." So I was getting these packages through the post of all of these 3D printed molds that Mark was producing for me to get the embossed detail. And they were just such beautiful things within themselves, and such amazing angular shapes and forms that we're about to cast from these. So I had a consultation with Mark and said, well, this is how I want you to print the molds. I need them to do this. I need this side to come off. I need this to come off. I need draft angles so that they release from the mold. Actually, you know, the draft angle is something that gives the angle. So when the mold comes off, it comes off nice and easy. If it's like this and straight, you get a lot of friction and you can't get it out properly. So yes, so this is what we were doing. So he ignored the draft angles. So obviously they couldn't come out of the mold that well. So, but you know, his concept was, it's going to take me too long to put the draft angles on. I'd rather print you another mold if the casting doesn't come out. I was just like, well, just print me a mold that I can use 2-3 times just in case the casting doesn't come out. But timing issues, but every single casting I did came out absolutely beautifully. So we didn't have to go down that line. But yes, we did have to heat them, snap them off, you know, heat gun. But look at the textures you were getting. And the forms. It's like a weird landscape of concrete in the workshop. So these are the actual slabs. So the angular elements for the fascia elements, these are the actual slabs that the plaques actually get fitted on. So you won't see this gaffer tape cross. So yes, I had fun excavating all of these bits of plastic out of these molds, which was not part of the initial quote. However, we are where we are. We're producing a piece of art for a worthy cause. You just got to take it on the chin and get on with it. So I used a heat gun just to heat it up the plastic elements a little bit, and then they could release quite easily from the mold. But you've got some really lovely embossed details, of which the poppies just fitted in. So we had the poppies made, 3D scanned, and then the prints were made based on the poppies. And that's all of the assembled angular elements at the front. So my first memorial. Now it's weird how life just synchronizes together, because like this, the client, the next client actually went into the 3D print shop the day before coming to me, and having a chat with Mark Bryant about concrete, and they both nerding out about concrete together, going, "Oh, I'm having some work done by this guy called Junior Phipps in London, conscious forms." Yes, me too. So this conversation went on, and he said, "Well, there's your reference," which is quite nice. But this project was for 3 fireplaces, and the 3 fireplaces, the colors were very poignant. They were based around Joseph Alber's design of ever-decreasing colored squares. So I produced a whole range of concrete blocks that were to be assembled to create these fireplaces. So one for the bathroom, the pink, blue, white. Just whiz through some of the details. Maker's mark. And this one was for the bedroom. Again, the signing off of the colors on this was a thing. We had to go back a number of occasions just to get the correct blue and the correct greeny blue and the correct green. And it made sense because it's really lovely when you go back and you see how the clients have dressed the products, and you understand why they wanted that green and why they wanted that blue, because it all made sense with the rest of the interior. And this is the table that I showed you earlier, which was off the back of one of those, one of the fireplaces, or 2 of the fireplaces. So the colors were being cast on that day straight into the mold, and the randomness that you get from these colors all merging together. And this is them all being adhered to the wall, stacked up and placed in their places. Now, like, this project was quite a thing because essentially you're cabinet making precision with a material that wants to shrink and expand and contract. So to create all of these ever decreasing squares was quite a thing. I had to slice pieces off to actually make sure that they fitted and that they were level. And these are some of the beautiful elements that you will never know as part of these fireplaces. And there is it in situ with some of the details. Double pink basin. I was commissioned to design this basin earlier on this year, end of last year, beginning of this year. It's just got a little draft angle at the bottom, and you can see all of the slopes from the top view and a little plug hole. That's your end view. So I started off by creating the former, the knockout, again, the bit that's going to create the cavity, and the box that it sits in, and then you bring them together once it's all sort of had its resin coat on to seal it. So that was just normal MDF with a 2-pack resin applied. Then made the mesh anti-shrinkage device, and this foam, this grey block down the middle is just a piece of foam to take essentially that lump of weight out of the sink, out of the basin. And that's it all poured. When it's put to bed, when it's hot, there's this sort of electric blanket on top to kickstart the chemical reaction because it was quite cold in the workshop. This is the mold former coming out, and how light the concrete is becoming. I was also commissioned to design the little caddy that slid across the top as well. And this is a double basin for a bathroom, so it would have 2 taps coming out over the top of it. So they wanted a ledge to put your products on, a caddy to put your sort of wet stuff on. But you know, when it's all polished up, it just came out really beautiful. Have a look at this little video. Okay, sorry, little glitch there. So the final project I want to talk about is the current project which I've been working on, and it is the Blossom Project 2021. It's the COVID-19 Memorial Gardens, which is now currently being installed in the Olympic Park. I was commissioned as a designer alongside the Edible Bus Stop and Davis White Landscape Architects Davis White Landscape Architects and the Edible Bus Stop are running the whole project. They're putting some tree rings in, 33 tree rings to represent the 33 boroughs of London, and some furniture, 3 benches, and some hard landscaping elements, all of which I cannot actually show you any pictures of, but I'm going to show you some elements of this because it's still a live project and it hasn't been launched yet, and it should be being launched at the end of this month. Ooh, having some technicals with this slideshow. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Blossom Project. This is one of the blossoming tree circles. And we were commissioned to, as I say, design 3 benches and have concrete elements within these benches. The benches are made out of wood, metal, wood, metal and concrete, not plastic. We're using some lovely marble aggregates to produce some of the bench elements. These ones are all sort of polished up and ready to be installed. These are some of the ground elements that will be put into the ground pre-grinding. We've chosen 3 greys, light, medium and dark. These are some of my kits that I use to buzz backs and go through the grit. So I work my way through 50, 100, 200, 400, 800. There's a 1500 and a 3000 and above, depending on what sort of level of sheen you want to go to. Here he is looking really chuffed with his buff, chuffed. And here's Teddy helping me out, exposing and releasing them from their molds, and they come out like this before they're exposed to this. And these are some of the reclaimed timber elements that will also be used. And what excitement there was when the metal elements turned up at the workshop, Jim's workshop around the corner. This was a local project with local artists. Felicity Jones Metalwork did the welding with her colleague Jim, and did a sterling job. They look absolutely amazing, all welded up. But this is all flat pack. So I designed the metalwork for these projects and the overall sort of visual concept with inputs from the Edible Bus Stop and Davis White Landscape Architects steering the design. to meet design inclusivity standards within the park. And this is the metalwork all coming together. Looks just like the drawing, look, of which I produced, spending many nights. And this was the test fitting of one of the elements onto the bench in the workshop. So here I am just grinding back some of the surfaces. It's all sort of hand done. I'm not routing the corners. It is a hands-on process. And this is, here we are on install day with the metalwork turned up on site. And so we have just arrived with the Dan Gittin, who did the woodwork, and myself and the Edible Busbut and Davis White Landscape Architects, all here just to make sure that it's fitted and everything is all synced together. So yes, this is the site. We've got a board marked concrete path, stamped concrete path. My pelly case ready to go for the installation, but unfortunately that's what I can show you of this project to date. That's the end of my slideshow. That's all of the projects to date. Hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you have any questions, I'm sure Pete was about to feed them to me. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Junior. I mean, I don't think I've been absolutely wowed by a talk at all in all the talks we've done on Grow. It's this absolutely amazing work, really, really stunning, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, really amazing. I have and such a breadth of work as well. I have some questions. Yeah. Angela Turner says, Junior, what are your molds made of, and do you make them all in-house?
Yes, all of my molds are made by myself. Depending on which particular mold you're referring to, the timber ones obviously are all made in-house, but I am using if I'm producing products, I tend to use a Vitaflex rubber, which is like a concrete casting rubber, which doesn't shrink too much and kind of holds its form quite well for concrete.
Brilliant. Rachel Ditch says, do you silica sand or building sand? That's a technical question, isn't it?
Yes, I use a whole range of sand depending on what I'm casting. I use kiln dried sand sometimes, and I use washed, very important, sharp sand, because it keys in with the concrete. The unwashed stuff will give you a funky colored concrete that was not part of the Pantone.
Is that because of the salt in it?
That's because of the dirt and the yellowness. If you've seen that yellow building sand that you pick up with your hands will be yellow afterwards, and that will be instead of having grey concrete, you will have magnolia, council house kind of paint colored concrete.
Fair enough.
If that's your destination, then you're fine,
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of things. I mean, your speakers, what's the acoustic quality of concrete? Is it good? Is it neutral? Is it enhance the bass or?
Absolutely brilliant. Because if you think about normal speakers, you make them rigid. You try and make them as rigid as possible and as inert as possible. But concrete just is that. So you don't. When I am rinsing these speakers and I'm playing them really loud in my studio, as my studio neighbours probably hear me occasionally, you will know that that the sound quality is absolutely beautiful, and also the electronics within it as well help you sort of either take the tweeters up or take them down a little bit. So they are engineered sort of speakers.
Okay, talking of electronics, what do you think about smart concrete with capacitors in and things like that? Have you the new stuff that they're building? Where you could power stuff with the capacitance in them and things.
We need to have a conversation. I'm not smart with the smart concrete yet. I'm not up with the
Well,
smart concrete.
they have
Yeah, I mean,
self-heating.
I like the idea of adding more sort of technology to the material and using it in more sort of modern, newfangled ways. I'm all up for development. I'm all up for like 3D printing concrete and architecture and things like that. There are technology will take the material to a different place.
Yeah.
And
I think it's the kind of thing you probably see on grand designs, like someone's just thrown a load of money and their house is all smart concrete and you just touch the walls and like Siri pops up or something like that.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you stroke the wall, the light goes up or down, or
Yeah. I personally, I love those. I loved it all actually because I'm a concrete nerd. I'm in the brutalism appreciation stuff, but I love those concrete dust impressions. They reminded me of like when you take impressions of fungal spores or something like that.
Sure,
would,
yeah.
would you consider like doing an exhibition of like 2D work like that? And
absolutely.
That's more creative kind of.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's why I kept those images because they were just they're all part of the story. They're all part of the narrative, and just those impressions themselves, and even just some of the snippets at the tops of the organic tables. They're works of art within themselves. I think
they are. It's like nougat or something when you get that cross section, isn't it? That stuff you used to try and eat when you were a kid at Christmas. Like, what's this? And finally, I'm a bit of a wood nerd. And I noticed, they use Douglas fir to get that kind of South Bank Centre, that typical kind of. Have you tried other different kinds of wood, and different grains and stuff like that? And
well, I mean, yeah, sort of going back to the slideshow that I took, that sort of mono block kind of worktop that I did, the one that I had in the workshop and then transferred to site. It's weird because it's almost like I've got to paint the timber that I use to cast off on there is called MDO, medium density overlay. You can get that at specialist sort of builders merchants, but it's just like got a paper face on it. It's almost like a greaseproof paper on plywood, but then behind there, and the pressure of the concrete on the wood, on the paper against the wood, and then when I sort of polish the concrete, it just brings all of the wood grain out naturally. So, I mean, even just casting off a plywood, simple plywood sealed with a varnish so that it doesn't sort of stick to the wood, and waxed over some sort of mold release will give you a similar sort of finish.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, that's amazing. Please ask some more questions, people. Don't be shy. Come on. I think there's a whole wealth of leads we could pick up there in Junior's work. I absolutely love it. I mean, I just think the breadth of the projects you've done, from your own personal things to really functional things to kind of commissioned works and that. I mean, they all have the same quality. They all have absolute attention to detail, and just the way you sort of almost jumping up and down when you're talking about concrete. It's like fantastic, isn't it?
It's the nerd in me.
I'm more excited about concrete than I have been in my life because of this stuff. I'm going to be going around touching concrete and looking at it and stuff.
Yeah, they'll have people. They'll have people looking out for you. They will.
Yeah, I know.
Like they have for me. I'm in the mad zone. I know.
Brilliant. Any more questions, anyone? Put them in the chat, or even switch your unmute yourself and chat if you like.
I mean, yeah, please do. I mean, I charge a lot for this service normally, so free advice at the moment if anybody's got any of those concrete projects that they need a specific answer to.
What do you do? Oh, there we got. Are you worried that concrete is now becoming a fad?
No, far from it. I think concrete is now part of the material library. I don't think it was before. I think people now understand the material. It's part of the library, and now it's like, well, what should we have? Should we have granite? Should we have marble? Should we have concrete? Should we have resin? It's in there now. It might be a fad, i.e. that now there's lots of people doing it, but I just still think it will always be on the radar now.
It kind of goes in phases, doesn't it, as well? Like, I mean, when you had the first brutalism kind of movement, then it falls out of favor for a few years, doesn't it? Because everyone's just like grew up in terrible kind of tower blocks that they just want to forget, and then somebody puts a reservation order on them and goes, hang on a minute, like Jonathan Meades or someone goes like, wait, this is really good, like look at it differently.
Yeah, Balfron Tower is a perfect example of that in East London, where it was, nobody wants to live there. It's council estate living. Now they've kicked all of the locals out, and now it's bourgeois home.
Well, it's like, or the Trellick in Notting Hill, which is now absolute kind of luxury residence, isn't it?
Trellick Towers, yeah, same thing.
Yeah, brilliant. What do you do when you what do you do when you're waiting for concrete to dry? Then
what do I do?
Blast music out on your speakers.
I blast music out on the speakers. I mean, that's just the general ambience in my studio. I mean, some of those videos, just music just helps me work and help me focus. But when I'm waiting for concrete to dry, I'm praying that I've done everything else correctly so that the concrete is doing its bit correct as well. Because it's like, every job, there's so much to remember, having it being such a bespoke projects. There's always a little something that you need to kind of, focus on and home into to make sure that your standards and quality remain high.
Yeah.
So generally, I'm worrying because, I've been casting concrete for 20 years. Anybody goes in there and says that I'm going there and I'm going to have a go, I'm saying, well, fair play to you,
Yeah.
Here's the number for the repair service.
Because
I still get scared after many years, and I think that's a healthy fear.
The self-repairing concrete, as apparently, I don't know how it works, but
sorry, I missed that. It's so
there's self-repairing concrete.
Oh yes, there is some stuff that is like alkalines within the mix that can just sort of leach back out and repair cracks, where cracks would arrive from it being sort of not reinforced or just a general sort of contraction of the material, and just general stresses within the building. It'd be fantastic, and then you've got this material that lasts even longer, because again, like I say, most of my stuff is about longevity.
But it's an amazing thing. It's alchemical, isn't it? It's fluid dynamics frozen, and then you get a record of that, don't you? Which is what the beauty of it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Liquid stone. Huh?
I've got another question and a couple of compliments that came in my WhatsApp. That I obviously didn't check because I don't. And Rod Hamling says, "This is amazing. Junior, loved hearing you talk through your process. Bravo." These are people who are too shy to be on the Zoom chat or can't be on it, but they're just watching, And we've got as well as Fiora Cooks, as well as your amazing work. I love the fact that you use up all your spare concrete. Off to find my anorak, or could I borrow yours? Yeah. Ruben, the great Ruben Jacobs, of course. Of Grow says, Ruben says, great to learn more about your process, Junior. Sorry I had to leave before the end, but I learned a lot. He's working all the time. That's the thing with Ruben. And Lisa Henderson, who's a local artist and person to Hackney, says, do you know if there's a way for concrete to take in CO2 yet?
They are working on that. There is research studies into concrete that absorbs CO2. So that is current. That is actually happening now.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want more information on that, have a look at the Concrete Centre or Concrete Quarterly magazine. Showing my nerd here. Yeah, I mean, these are the places you can find out a little bit more about that new technology within concrete.
There's a magazine called Concrete Quarterly.
Absolutely.
This is like the program that they used to Private Eye Gate. They used to have Boris Johnson on, sadly, and they put a quote up, wouldn't they? It'd be like from some kind of obscure magazine like Concrete Quarterly. Yeah, where can you get it?
I mean, it's probably an online thing now. But they also the Concrete Quarterly, and there's the Concrete Elegance lectures, which they're quite popular at Store Street at the Building Centre,
which is a brilliant place actually, for anyone to visit. It really is excellent exhibitions and stuff. Yeah.
Sure. But in particular, they have the Concrete Centre element within there, which is there to promote concrete. And they used to be one of my sponsors, supporting me exhibiting concrete stuff, because obviously I was promoting material with a
brilliant. I'd highly recommend that place. Brilliant place, right in the centre of London as well. Floating Concrete says, What's your favorite concrete building or thing?
Oh, it's got to be Zaha. Zaha Hadid's the Aquatic Centre. You know, I've just done a piece of furniture to fit in the park. Co-designed a piece of furniture to fit in the park with which Zaha Hadid's Aquatic Centre is within, and you know that building blows me away every time I walk past it. I mean, you know, Tado Ando, a lot of his work, Berthold Lubetkin, Zaha Hadid, Le Corbusier, all of these people have done some amazing stuff. I was absolutely blown away by Le Corbusier's Ronchamp Chapel when I visited it in France many years ago. And that must have planted a seed in me because the roof and the building is just, it's out of this world. He was just so ahead of his time.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Well, I have no more questions, but if you got any more you'd like to tell us, or like where your website is and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, my website, www.consciousforms.com. I'm at Conscious Forms on Instagram. You can see a lot more of the current stuff that I've been doing and working on, more so on the Instagram. The website's due for an update in the next month or so, but I keep the Insta feed quite fresh. So there is a link on the website as well to the Insta feed. That's where I'm at. Short of that, any funky concrete projects that you want to sort of discuss or even want some advice on, I'm happy to spill my knowledge as well, if I have the time.
Brilliant.
Thing right now because I'm very busy.
You're busy, aren't you? Yeah, and you're at Grow Studios, of course, which is brilliant.
Yeah,
to have you,
awesome.
in a privilege to have you here. Junior, I said it before, and I think I'm just echoing everybody who's watching, everyone who's on the talk. That was absolutely mind-blowing. It was an insight into what's probably considered quite a mundane material, and now is like an absolute jewel to us. It's what an amazing thing you've done with it, and thank you so much for doing that talk. I'm blown away by it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks for listening. Thanks for, nerding out with me, and spending the time to listen to my babble. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Wonderful. Cheers. Thanks very much. Night.
All right.
Good night, everyone.